Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I understand the bill, and your description was very good. Section A, or Section 1 rather, A, looks like a just a definition of state agency, and Section 2 seems that it's instructions that each state agency shall do an assessment about what it would take to actually develop forms that include a non-binary gender option by date certain, January 1st, 2024. And then Section C says that they will update their forms based on that assessment as of October 1st. What I'm confused about is Section D, where it says the provisions of this section shall not apply to any state agency that does not provide forms or applications to be completed by members of the public. And I can certainly understand if there's no forms, then you don't need to make a change. But I don't know if this implies that the forms that are completed by state employees will not have this change. Maybe you can clarify that for me.
Thank you, Senator. I believe that the main purpose of this proposal is to deal with forms that have a public interface, so where members of the public are being asked to share information with the state agency. I don't think it's been contemplated either in this proposal this year or in previous conversations we've had in this committee with regard to this proposal to include any internal forms and documents that state agencies may have, but I don't know that we would necessarily be averse to doing that in a version of this bill in the future.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. That makes sense. I thought it was interesting that we are certainly updating forms in this bill proposal for forms completed by the public, but it just seemed ironic that we would not do that for forms that are used as for state employees and so forth. I have some concerns with this bill, and as you mentioned, it's been before this committee a number of times in the past, and I think it doesn't make it over the finish line for a number of reasons, and obviously the biggest one is cost. And I think the Secretary of State had indicated just their one agency might generate a cost of $250,000 to update their forms, and I think that's the purpose of these this timeline. You know, using January 1st to do an assessment and then October 1st to implement it. But the other issue I have really is that changing forms that are currently give options for male and female to now say male, female, and a non-binary gender option. Does that mean that the form will say, you know, there'll be a checkbox for non-binary, or will it say something different, gender neutral? What would the form actually say, Madam Chairman?
Thank you, Senator Sampson. I believe the state agencies will first assess their existing forms to determine which forms would need to have this additional option added to it, and then those forms would be updated to include a non-binary option. So when they are requesting information with regard to sex or gender, there would have to be an additional option for people who identify as non-binary as opposed to male or female.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but you didn't really answer my question, which is what would the option be? I understand that there may be more than one way that folks who identify as non-binary may describe themselves, and I guess that's what I'm asking is, because I think in fairness to the members of this committee, before we make a commitment to support this legislation, I'd like to know exactly what the form's going to say. Is it going to say male, female, and other? Is it going to say male, female, and gender neutral? Will it say male, female, non-binary? Will it say something different than that? I think it's important for us to know.
To the Senator, the form, in my interpretation, will say non-binary. That will be the additional option.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that answer. I don't know that that's completely clear from the language, since it simply says to include a non-binary gender option. And if they had wanted to say simply non-binary, they would have said so in the bill language. I have concerns about this from lots of different perspectives, and I'm trying to be cognizant of the fact that there are people all across the political spectrum who have different views on this subject and to be respectful of them. There are certainly people who believe there are only two genders. I'm one of them. I don't think there are any other genders, although I do acknowledge the fact that there are some people that are born with certain characteristics that may make it difficult to define their actual anatomical, biological gender. But for all intents and purposes, there are males and females, and there are no other genders. But there are people in our society who do identify in different ways. The question becomes twofold now. It's, do we recognize that people want to identify as something other than male or female, number one? And then number two, if we're going to do that, and we're going to take that leap, which I think is a very giant leap in one respect, but if we are going to take that leap, how should we do it? And I don't know that this would even be fair to them. I've run across people in my experience that identify lots of different ways, and simply to give them the choice of male, female, and non-binary doesn't seem like you're being as inclusive as maybe this bill's ultimate goal is. I think that is maybe potentially less inclusive because now it has included only a segment of people that have an alternative view to male versus female. For me, the best solution really would be to just keep gender out of the hands of government officials when reviewing forms. I think that would have the benefit of preventing potential discriminatory action based on gender. And I have an amendment, Madam Chairman, and I'll call it Amendment A. And effectively what it would do is simply eliminate the question altogether, to say that our government forms in the future would no longer ask for gender at all. So I make a motion to approve my amendment. I have copies I can distribute to the members of the committee if you want to take a second to do that. And I'd like a roll call vote.
Thank you, Representative. Yes, I do think the copies will be necessary so that we know which lines of the bill you're actually attempting to amend. Is there a second to Senator Sampson's amendment? Second has been made by Representative Mastro Francesco. We will pause for just a moment so that members of the committee can receive the copies of the amendment, and so that I can check with the committee staff to make sure that members who are participating remotely have received copies of the amendment.
Not before the vote on the amendment, no, but
Okay.
I would like to retain the floor after.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator. Encourage my colleagues to reject this amendment. There are a variety of reasons why state agencies may need to collect gender identifying information, and it would greatly affect the operation of those agencies. And one area I would highlight is an area that this committee has done a lot of good work on across state government and in great consultation with the Office of Policy of Management, which is in the area of data collection. If we were to eliminate the collection of information with regard to sex and gender, it could really cause some difficulty and reduce the amount of good data we have on a variety of issues with regard to state agencies and how they function, and many public policy issues that need to be contemplated and that do need to recognize all of the different genders that a person may identify as. And so with that, I would encourage my colleagues to respectfully reject this amendment. Is there any other discussion on the Senator Sampson's amendment? Seeing Representative Haddad.
Sampson Amendment A. Flexer.
Senator Flexer votes no.
Blumenthal.
Blumenthal votes no.
Slapp.
Senator Slapp votes no.
Morin-Bello.
Morin-Bello votes no.
Sampson.
Sampson is yes.
Mastro Francesco.
Mastro Francesco votes yes.
Berger Gervallo.
Berger Gervallo votes no.
Branco.
Yes.
Carpino. Haddad.
Haddad votes no.
Hoxa.
Hoxa votes yes.
Kana.
Kana votes no.
Labriola. Marks. McCarthy Vahey. McCrory. Parker. Rosario.
Rosario votes no.
Santiago.
Santiago votes no.
All set, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Would you please, when you're ready, announce the tally on the amendment vote?
5 yea, 9 nay, 5 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The amendment fails. Senator Sampson?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Oh, shucks. I thought we were going to be so close and that we would pull that off. I got to tell you, I mean, it's the conversation in politics surrounding gender is such a toxic topic. It's almost dangerous to wade into the discussion. And I think that the best way to handle it is, as I've tried to do here today, which is to just be completely honest about it, which is that there are people that have different points of view. And in America, we do our best to try and recognize those different points of view and respect them. That's the best solution, instead of trying to force our way onto others. And I guess that I would say that might be my objection to the underlying bill, is that I have a feeling that in some respects this pushes a worldview that many people, myself included, do not agree with. And I don't think that people would appreciate me pressing my worldview upon them. And the best solution for that ultimately is to find a reason or a solution that solves that problem by allowing people to be individuals, to choose their own path in life, and to be respected in the process, but not to force their worldview or their agenda upon others. I certainly respect the concerns about federal aid, but I stand by the principle that we should really be judging people in our society on merit and merit alone. And there is a tremendous tendency, particularly in blue states, to data mine, I guess is the proper word, and put people into categories by race, by gender, by ethnicity, and to develop policy based on those characteristics. Forgetting, of course, that every one individual is an individual person, and that you cannot judge people based on their gender or their race and ethnicity. And I think it is dangerous and wrong to do so, and certainly contradictory of our value system as Americans. So I have a follow-up amendment which I hope will further make another attempt to address this issue, which this one, rather than eliminating the question altogether, would offer a different third answer. Because as I mentioned, I don't believe even including non-binary as a third option would do justice to the people that have the worldview that differs from mine. I think that there are many people that say, no, I don't identify as male, female, or non-binary. I'm, whatever. And I know we've had another bill in this committee before that said we could put an X. But do people want to be identified as X? I don't think so. I think if you want to be identified a certain way, then you should be able to identify that way. That doesn't mean that anyone else should recognize it. If I came in here today and said that I'm a giraffe, I don't expect anyone to treat me like I'm a giraffe. And that's just a matter of fact. But I should be allowed to do whatever I choose. And I respect that notion and view of the world. So this Amendment B, I will offer, changes Section C of the bill again, and this time it would change the language from male and female, and the third answer would be prefer not to answer. which I think is a perfectly acceptable response. And I move adoption and like a roll call vote, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Are there further questions or comments? Oh, thank you. Yeah. The motion has been seconded by Representative Mastro Francesco for Senate Amendment B. I would encourage my colleagues to oppose this amendment for reasons stated on the last amendment. Are there any additional comment or question? Representative Mastro Francesco.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Amendment B. Flexer.
Senator Flexer votes no.
Blumenthal.
Blumenthal votes no.
Slap.
Senator Slatt votes no.
Morinbello.
Morinbello votes no.
Sampson.
Sampson is yes.
Mastro Francesco.
Mastro Francesco votes yes.
Berger Gervallo.
Berger Gervallo votes no.
Branco.
Yes.
Corpino. Haddad.
Haddad votes no.
Hoxa.
Hoxa votes yes.
Kana.
Kana votes no.
Labriola. Marks.
Marks votes no.
McCarthy Vehi.
McCarthy Vehi votes no.
McCrory. Parker. Rosario.
Rosario votes no.
Santiago.
Santiago votes no.
All set, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And when you are ready, if you could announce the tally on the amendment vote on Amendment B.
5 yea, 11 nay, 3 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The amendment fails. Are there additional comments or questions on House Bill 6866? Seeing no additional comments or questions, Representative Berger Gervallo.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a final comment, which is that, I tried to offer a couple of solutions that I thought might be respective of all parties. And maybe people don't agree with my commentary or my views, but I do believe that the solutions I offered are valid and appropriate. The alternative, which is to move forward with the bill as is not inclusive. It is not inclusive in any way. It will not be inclusive of people that don't identify as male, female, and non-binary, and it will not be inclusive of people like me who feel there are only two genders. So we can either go through this world deciding that it's okay for the government to pass legislation that is less inclusive and forces people to adopt an agenda they don't agree with, or we can try and find solutions like I offered, which would respect anyone to be able to complete the form without feeling they are left out. So I'm a no on the bill, Madam Chairman, and I would encourage my colleagues some introspection about it might be great when you're in the majority and you can force your will on people that disagree with you, but you may not always be in the majority.
Are there any additional